Now in this video, I'm going to talk about how to look at data, how to arrange the data in a tabular form, and also visualize the data in different forms for different utilities. Now before I get into the data representation and talking about how do I see data, it's a very important aspect that we need to look at. What is it? It's about missing value. Now what is that missing value? Let's take a look at the table on your screen. You'll find a data set which is about customer information, and some of them might not have provided their phone numbers, email IDs, or even age. Right? Now how do I work on a data set which has such missing values? How do I handle these situations? There are multiple ways of doing it. And when I look at the different ways of doing it, the first thing that comes is to eliminate the row where there are a lot of missing data or missing values. But sometimes you cannot do it because your data size is so limited that you cannot keep on removing rows. That doesn't help you. Then the other approach is to look at the source and figure out, is it something I'm missing and I can get those data points, those data values, so that my data set looks complete? If that is also not possible, then the third approach is to replace those values by some numerical values, provided those data points are numerical in nature. So you can replace it by the mean or the median of those data points. Now, data accuracy is perennial to any data analysis. It's a very important aspect, and therefore, when you are dealing with missing data or data which are having problems, it is important that you dress the data well before you start working on it. Now, let us look into the different types of representation of data. So one is called frequency distribution. Now, when I'm looking at the data points and I'm arranging that data, this can happen based on the repeated measures. Now, one type of data can be, present in multiple repetitions. That actually converts into a frequency. To summarize a categorical data, we create these frequency distribution tables. Right. Take a look at the table on your screen, and it lists each category along with the frequency or the number of occurrences of each category, in case of the short colors that you see in the data set. Now, frequency is the count of the repetition that I was talking about. Now, what is a relative frequency? Relative frequency is the frequency divided by the total number of shots available, and that you can see in the table. Now, when I look at the total sum of the frequencies are the total of all the frequencies, and it actually becomes the 100% of the data available in the data set. Now, when I look at categorical data and I want to see the data, and it's not just a tabular form, is there a better way of looking at data? Yes. Visualization is a better way of looking at it, because in many occasions, managers do not have time to go through tables and tables of data points. So how do I put more emphasis on data? By just looking at the data, visualizing the data. So we can present the frequency distribution that you just saw, frequency, the way we have presented the table, in a bar chart. That's one way of looking at it. Now, when I look at the numerical data, in the numerical data, you can also look at it as a bar chart, or you can group the data and then see the frequency of the group data in the form of a histogram. Now, if you have, say 30 days data for number of shirts sold in a store, which is a raw data for you to summarize, then you can group those raw data, creating grouped frequency table, and you can see that in the table on the screen. Now, like the categorical data, here you can also plot the bar or pie chart, but the histogram is better visualizer as shown here, where the bars represent frequency of the values within each interval. Summarizing categorical and qualitative data using frequency distribution, relative frequency, and charts or graphs is a key to unlocking very valuable information within datasets. They aid in spotting trends, patterns, and outliers in any data. Now that brings us to the concept of outliers. It's a very important aspect of data set. Before I start processing data sets, it is important to identify the outliers and get rid of the outliers. These are the extreme data points in a data set. For example, take a look at the image on the screen. You will see here the height of the student is much higher than others. Now look at the graph on the screen where one data point is at an extremely high value. Now let us dig deeper into more ways of understanding data, more ways of data visualization, and chart and distribution are two very, very useful way of representing data. Now here, it's a very critical and important aspect of understanding the difference between a bar chart, a chart, and a distribution. Besides the different visualization that I talked about, which includes histogram and bar chart, there are other ways of also looking at data. One can be a pie chart where the percentages of the different categories are presented. For example, if I look at a participant profile coming from India, Europe, US, what percentage of participants have come from the different zones, that can be put in a pie chart, and that looks better. When we are looking at the relationship between multiple variables, then the other plot that helps us is known as scatter plot. Now let us move into another very interesting insight. Now we talked about histogram, we talked about charts and all other things. Let's look at an example and try to figure out the differences. Let us look at the children spending time on screen. So basically the variable is screen time, and the children that you are having in the school can be the data. So if I want to see that data, how can I see it? If you look at the screen, the first way of representing this is a chart where the x-axis is all about the children and the y-axis is the hours spent on screen. Who would be interested in a data type like that? Probably the school children, school teacher, and the parents of those children. If you arrange them in ascending order or in descending order, the shape of the graph changes. Now think about somebody who makes games. Think about a company who is making spectacles. Now for them, what is interesting? For them, they are not interested in the individual children. They are interested in children at whole. So for them, what happens is then the x-axis takes a different route. What is that? Hours spent per day looking at screens, and the y-axis becomes the repeated number of children, which is frequency. The moment I change this diagram in a new x and new y axis, what I get as an end result is a distribution. And very interestingly, even if you change, you put the data in ascending order or in descending order, this diagram does not change. This is called distribution. So to summarize, in this entire video, what did we see? We saw how the data can be represented in frequency distribution. The data can be represented in different charts and diagrams. And also we saw how the same data can be represented as a bar diagram vis-a-vis a distribution. These are very important insights for a decision maker, and for a practicing manager, you need to understand and apply the appropriate data visualization technique for an appropriate problem.